Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
2%.
The 2%'s right over here.
Oh, hey, Jenna. I didn't know you shopped here.
Yeah, anything to support local food, know what I mean?
I definitely do, though that's not the only thing you do in the name of good eats, obviously.
Well, true. I also host Eating Matters every Wednesday at 5 p.m., where we talk about food policy and how it impacts all of us. Be sure to tune in.
All right, gotta get the plug in there, I get it.
Yep, I'm #shameless.
You know what else you can do to support the local food community, right?
Well, yeah, make a donation to Heritage Radio Network, the world's pioneer food radio station.
That's right, and I gotta call you out on the whole local thing.
What do you mean?
Well, the Farm Report, A Taste of the Past, Japan Eats, those are shows that take you around the country and the world.
I'll give you that. So how can listeners give their support?
It's pretty easy. Just go to heritageradionetwork.org and click on the big red heart in the top right corner. It's pretty easy from there.
Thanks.
Today's program is brought to you by Cane Vineyard and Winery, a Napa Valley winery committed to respecting the soil and dedicated to the creation of 3 Cabernet blends. For more information, visit cane5.com.
I'm Greg Blaze, host of Cutting the Curd. You're listening to Heritage Radio Network, broadcasting live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. If you like this program, visit heritageradionetwork.org for thousands more.
We talk about food, we talk about music, with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Welcome to Snacky Tunes.
Thanks so much.
I'm one half of your host, Darren Bresnitz. We are sitting in one of the many upstairs secret rooms of Gwen. Chef Curtis Owen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Nice to be here.
Nice. Thank you for having me. So you're a few weeks in.
Yeah.
A few weeks in. How's it going? I feel like there's no more unique time in a restaurant's life than like the first like few weeks and months.
It's so true. Yeah, it's like it's a bit like having a child. If you've ever had a child.
Not that I know of.
Well, that's good. Not good that you don't know, but good that you haven't had one yet, because it means that you still get to sleep in and go to cafes and you go to watch a movie. Whenever your buddy has a kid,
yeah,
they ring you invariably and say, "Why didn't you tell me?" You know, like it's so much harder than I'd ever imagined, and opening a restaurant's a bit similar.
So this is your second kid, with Maud being your first. You know, to say, a lot of times we ask people where their inspiration or like how they got, you know, their first love for cooking for, but I think it's pretty clear that your grandmothers had a little bit of influence on you and your brother when it comes to cooking and food.
Yeah, they did. I mean, in some ways, they had a big influence on me with food, but a bigger influence on me with other things. You know, my one granny, Maud, taught me how to play cards. She taught me how to play tennis. She taught me a lot about life. And same as my other nan, Gwen, she taught me lots of bits and pieces. And I think when it comes to a restaurant, you have such a personal relationship with your own restaurant. And to give it an identity that means something special to you it's purely a selfish thing, right? Like there's no reason, and truthfully, who cares? It's just a name. Like, name some other good restaurants and tell me what they mean. Spargo, Alinea,
sure,
Millis. You know, like, you don't know and you don't really care, right? They become their own things. But for me, I wanted it to feel personal because I knew I was going to be married to it for a while, and it's, you know, it's funny. A restaurant takes on its own. It becomes its own being. You know, like it becomes this living, breathing thing, and it's interesting having it resemble your granny's, because it's a place that people come to have fun and drink and, you know, in some ways misbehave. But you know, and one of my grannies was certainly like that. The other one not so much. But they're both good fun and taught me a lot about the world.
But don't you find when you name it after two women who had such an influence on you in your life that it's easier for you to sometimes check yourself or as a reminder of when you're making decisions, both big and small, or what you're putting into it? And I'm not saying that, you know, obviously Granachas and anyone else who has a restaurant that's done what they've done put that decision to it, but when you're naming it after someone, it has a little bit more weight and gravity to it.
Yeah, it really does. It makes you more honest.
Yeah.
It makes you more earnest, to use one of my granny's terms. And I think that's a good thing, you know? Like, you want to live your life by some kind of set of guidelines and rules, and it keeps you in check for sure.
I mean, so you've traveled the world. Obviously, you're not from LA.
What do you mean? You didn't recognize my Brooklyn accent?
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was the Bronx accent. But you're obviously a chef who's traveled the world, who's done everything from TV to shows to festivals to everything, and you've cooked all over the world as well with even like legendary Miss Chef White. But why LA? You know, why when it's all said and done, when you sort of, not that you're done with TV, but when you've moved on to the next phase, why here?
Look, I think LA is a special place for many reasons. It's a city that you truthfully don't like very much when you first get here. At least that was my experience.
I think that's everyone's experience.
It just grows on you.
It does.
Yeah, it really does, and you fall more and more in love with it. And from a culinary perspective, I couldn't think of anywhere I'd rather be more. They have the most incredible microclimates within both Northern and Southern California, but around Los Angeles specifically, you know, you always hear those stories about people that go surfing in the morning and snowboarding in the afternoon, because and it's true, you literally can, which to a chef means you can buy carrots in the morning from the high desert that's still got a frost on the ground, but you can buy tomatoes in the afternoon that is an hour out of San Diego because the sun shines 320 days a year or something crazy. So we just we can grow the best vegetables in the world. So in my mind, there's no question about that. And we also have this kind of hippie-ish attitude amongst our farmers and growers that give it like a real genuine community-based feel to it. So you can get your hands on incredible ingredients, and I think LA in general has gone through this crazy renaissance in terms of its diners.
Absolutely.
Where people are really interested and prepared to try new things where once it wasn't that exciting here.
I mean, I think that the ingredient argument is always going to be said for the West Coast, especially in San Francisco and Southern California. But I mean, you could have done anything. You could have gone anywhere. You could have opened up a giant restaurant, and your first restaurant, 24 seats, concept restaurant, high-end concept tasting menu. What drove you, and in Beverly Hills, what drove you to make that decision? Because that is a very much, drawing a line. This is a statement. This is not just, I'm cooking stuff from, you could have cooked your grandma's recipes in a 200 covers a night type of restaurant, but you did very concept, very clear mission statement. What drove you to that decision?
I think for me personally, I got to a point in my life where I'd made a bit of money, I had a pretty good lifestyle, I'd fallen in love, was about to start a family.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it was all sort of pretty rosy. But I think if you're sort of creatively driven and you don't play out that opportunity of creation, there's something that feels a little hollow. Mm-hmm. And I've always been creatively driven, and I always loved being in a kitchen and developing new things. And that had been put on the back burner, so to speak, and I'd sort of been busy with other stuff. So to me, it was a real personal challenge. I was like, can I still do it? I'm 40. Sure. Most of these guys are in their 20s that are doing it. I joke that they call me granddad downstairs in the restaurant because they all skip out at the end of the night and go out for a drink, and I hobble out because I'm an old man compared with them. But it's sort of, the kitchen's changed a lot. Technology's used now more than ever in the kitchen, if you so choose to endorse it. There's a very different attitude. I grew up in a restaurant era where you got screamed at and things thrown at you. Of course that doesn't exist anymore.
Not at all?
Well, not on Saturday, not on Fridays.
Not on Friday nights.
Or Thursdays or Wednesdays.
That's
Saturdays.
There's another secret room with Gwen. But I mean, so you open up this restaurant, you open up Mod, which is not only concept, but fine dining in a way that is both fresh. When I think of fine dining in LA, it's Providence or something like that. Not a lot of people are really opening up a ton of really high-end stuff. But the concept is something novel in a way where it's one ingredient making the entire tasting menu each month and change. So you didn't even pick an easy concept. Can you talk about the process of what it is to not only serve a 9-course, 10-course tasting menu overnight, but then also doing R&D and finding the next recipes the next month at the same time not a giant restaurant.
Right. And look, truthfully, it's a very selfish choice to do more. It's sort of...
So what I'm getting is everything you've done is very selfish.
It's all just for me.
And you're just happy enough that people like your selfish intonations.
Well, I figured I'm throwing dinner parties all the time anyway. I may as well get paid for one of them.
Yeah.
To do... it's every chef's dream is what I'm saying. To have a 24-seat restaurant.
Oh my God, it's perfect.
Yeah. And to challenge yourself to the point where you say, at the end of every month, we literally throw it all away, and then we have to implement a brand new menu. It's effectively opening a new restaurant each month. And then the idea of farm to table was always great to me, especially when you're at home and you're buying ingredients, treating them very simply and serving them. But from a restaurant perspective, I feel like it's a little lazy for a chef. It's like, yes, it can be delicious that way, but as a chef, aren't we supposed to do something more than that? Aren't we supposed to really figure out techniques and show interesting, creative ways to serve food? Isn't that the difference between shopping and cooking from a professional standpoint?
Which has been the argument of West Coast versus East Coast cooking, where all the East Coast chefs go, well, you have the best ingredients, so you're not even really doing anything other than just letting the ingredients speak for themselves.
Right. But I wanted to take those fantastic ingredients and sort of flip it around a little and say, let's put it under a microscope and let's say, what can we do with it? Here's a fabulous carrot, but what can we actually do with it? Yes, we can juice it, we can dehydrate it, we can freeze it, we can turn it into a gel, we can turn it into a paste, we can roast it, we can, manipulate it in 1,000 ways that actually change the texture, the flavour. And then how can we do that and still thread the ingredient through a multi-course tasting menu and have it not become redundant?
Right. You've had a lot of successes. I would say the Morel dinner, I'll say it on the record, one of the top 3 meals I've ever had. That Morel scallop was amazing. Both my wife and I still talk about that years later. But not every ingredient can really hang for 9 courses. Have you tried any ingredients where you got, maybe 2 or 3, but just is never going to get its own starring role?
Look, we haven't done an ingredient and then turned our back on it. We've been maybe for our own detriment. I think we've had a couple of menus that haven't been as good as others.
Which ones? Were you just it almost got there, but not as good as?
There's 2 that really stand out to me.
Yeah.
Corn was really difficult, and I think we did a better job with corn than.
I thought it was a great meal.
Did you?
I had corn. Yeah.
It was hard because it's so sweet. You don't think about it at the start, but the entire, everything you do to corn, whether you juice it or fry it or cook it or poach it, it just has this residual sweetness. Mm-hmm. And to do a 10-course sweet tasting menu,
it's a lot.
Is miserable.
Yeah.
It also doesn't balance well with acid. So, where another sweeter ingredient that you can think you can balance it with some lime or some passion fruit or some vinegar or whatever, you get a real balance. Avocado was the other one that was hard because it's, again, a fatty ingredient that, yes, you can cut through it with acidity, but when you actually break avocado down, the flavour of it is a little one note. It's... And when we searched, we tried it raw, we tried to cook it, which doesn't, in my opinion, really work as well with it.
Yeah.
But you want to keep giving people different stuff. So, but look, I think that's been a part of the fun of it.
Yeah.
I remember we had a new chef de partie in there just recently during the garlic menu, and he's like, I just would never have thought of doing a garlic dessert. And I was like, me neither, but we have to. And that's kind of part of the fun of it.
I mean, it's, the reception to Mod has been really great. And in many ways, with it being a fine dining type of restaurant and LA being, I think, overall a much more casual type of experience, do you feel any responsibility in helping shape what is the new wave of fine dining in LA? Are you pushing to see other restaurants like that? I mean, I know especially with Gwen, this is another fine dining restaurant, tasting menu as well. But are you hoping to see more fine dining across it? And do you feel that weight on your shoulders a little bit?
Do you know, I think LA's got a really interesting way of making old stuff uniquely Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's happening with this new food movement in LA is you open a good restaurant, and this is just the nuts and bolts reality of it. You look for staff, right? That's the first thing you do. So you bring a few people you fly someone in from Australia, you fly someone from the UK that you used to work with, whatever. But then you need the other 15 people that make up the kitchen brigade. And as people start coming through the door, you're like, okay, you've worked here, you've worked there, but there might only be a handful of restaurants in LA that you're happy to take cooks from because they're going to have the experience.
Right.
But in New York there might be 20, or in Chicago there might be 15 great restaurants that you'd be like, oh, you worked at Grant Atchett's joint? Absolutely. You got a spot on my team, where in LA it's a little more difficult. But the flip side of that is people start coming to LA because they hear about the ingredients and they hear about there's something new happening out there. I think it is, truthfully, and I'm not just saying this because I live here, I really do think it's an exciting time to eat in LA. And I go to New York and I go to San Francisco or wherever else, and you're like, it's not as exciting as it was 10 years ago. And there's been some kind of shift.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, well, your chef over at Mod came from Saint Assam in Brooklyn.
Right.
I think it absolutely, you're seeing definitely a creative and culinary drain a little bit from the East Coast. because there is more opportunity and more room to play around out here.
Yeah.
But do you feel that at some point, maybe in 5-10 years, there's going to be a whole lineage of people who cooked at Mod? Or do you hope to see that and they're opening up other fine dining restaurants?
I really do, and I think that's what's interesting about it. I talk to people about Los Angeles as if I'm a native, and of course I'm not. I've only been here 10 years.
Are you sure?
And I hope that some of the guys that are in my kitchen right now that are from London and New York and Chicago and Spain and Greece, I hope that in 10 years' time they're having a similar conversation saying, in Los Angeles we do it like this, because they've come with their fine dining backgrounds from around the world, and then their experience in Los Angeles. And the thing I love about LA is you can do fine dining without all the fluff, without all the pretense, and without like the snobbiness. And the diners really respond to it. And, I find that, like I said before, LA has this way of making something its own. And I think that LA can do fine dining in a brand new way that's never been done before, that can really set a trend that doesn't just exist in Los Angeles, but sort of goes back across the East Coast and beyond, that you can still have this really elevated cooking, inventive, creative style of chef performing in a way that sort of, shows people that it can be just as delicious as those old school fine dining restaurants, but a lot more fun.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fun, we're going to take a quick break and talk about Gwen, which is a completely different experience than Mod, but has a lot of the same aesthetic and sort of guiding points. We're going to listen to one of our favorite bands, Moon Hooch, who played a blazing saxophone performance here live on Snacky Tunes. Welcome back to Snacky Tunes. We're here with Chef Curtis Stone, sitting in his new, brand spanking new baby, Gwen, named for Mother's Mother, right? Maud is
Yes.
father's mother.
Yeah.
And it is definitely, well, it's different than Maud, but in many ways, you have this theme of just doing exactly what you want. You're doing another tasting menu here. And to have your 2 restaurants. Now, you offer a butcher scrap a la carte menu, but what is the... I mean, there is some bravado there to say that I have 2 restaurants, you're going to eat what I cook, or you're not going to eat it at all.
It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? I mean, I think if you want to do something really well, you have to really believe in it. Because otherwise your heart's not there. And I kind of feel like when it comes to food, what my experience at least has been, people that cook well like to eat what they cook. And if you're obsessed with meat, then you'll cook meat really well. If you're an absolute fish lover, if you're a dessert-aholic, then you'll be good at desserts. So to me, to really do something that I believe in, I think is the best way to do it. And when I think about dining out, this is the way I like to eat, and I think chefs get this experience all the time because we're buddies with a bunch of other chefs, and you go out for dinner and the chef literally walks over and takes the menu off the table and says, anything you don't want to eat, I'll be back in 10 minutes. And then the food just starts to come.
And then 4 hours later, you're waving your white napkin and going like, please stop.
Bring me a gin and tonic.
Now, for those who don't know what Gwen is, it really is inspired by the classic European butcher shop. Now, you and your brother started as butchers, right?
Yeah, we did.
Were you competitive for who could break down like a pig the fastest and things like that?
Luke started when he was literally 15 years old, so it's probably illegal these days. But he started as a young guy, which meant that I was still a little boy because he's the older brother. Although I probably look older than him these days. And then I started when I was 18. I started my apprenticeship in a 5-star hotel, and that had a butcher shop in it. So they were very different style butcher shops, but we both had this love of meat. And yes, we used to argue about what the best way to break down a pig was. And we both sort of went in different directions, and I ended up in the restaurant business, and he ended up in the flower business, actually, which was my mum's industry. She was a florist, and then he took over her business later on in life. But we sort of always had this love of it, and truthfully, it's a craft that's disappearing, right before our eyes.
Sure. I mean, I think you see it. I mean, New York, I think butchery is definitely with Fleischer's, Meat Hook, things like that. It's there, but it's coming back, but not where it used to be a butcher on every corner.
Right.
Like Otto Benelli's and all the other ones from New York, where it's just as abundant as any other store.
Yeah.
But in LA, there are not a ton. I mean, there aren't really butcher programs like that, or restaurant that do really. I mean, there's a few, and you're one of them. But when did you get this idea? I mean, you guys must have had this idea for a while, though, right?
We kicked it around forever, and the initial plan was we'd open something back in Australia.
Okay.
And we sort of spoke about it for a while, and Luke lived in Australia with his family, and would sort of say, let's sit down and brainstorm, and he'd sort of be pushing me to do it, and I'd always just be too busy, and the thought of trying to open something remotely didn't feel right. So we sort of eventually I convinced him to uproot his entire life and family and move them all to LA, and here we are doing it. And the thought of an old school butcher shop and how that works in conjunction with a restaurant is cool. I mean, I wanted to be really defined in the way we thought about it. It couldn't just be a restaurant with a butcher's counter,
No.
It actually has to be a standalone butcher shop that does a great job, and then it happens to be a part of a restaurant, and they of course can feed off each other. The one big travesty of a great butcher shop is if you buy in something really exotic or rare or unusual and it doesn't sell, guess what happens to it?
It just gets tossed.
Yeah, you toss it, and you lose the money on it. So once bitten, twice shy, you never buy those rabbits again, or you're certainly not going to buy those exotic game birds from Scotland next year. Where we have the opportunity with the restaurant sort of coexisting, we can buy stuff in, and if we buy in hare or rabbits or pheasants or whatever it is, we can always say, if in 2 days we haven't sold that through the butcher shop. We're going to turn it into a terrine or a rillette, or put it on a skewer and serve it in the bar. And we literally have a wasteless butcher shop, which is cool.
It's interesting, that sentiment of being like, okay, we can't push this product that someone will go home and cook with, but we'll put it through the kitchen, and all of a sudden, because you have a tasting menu where people have no choice, and all of a sudden you can sell what they wouldn't buy originally.
It sounds like a fascist state.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you won't eat the rabbits? No, you're gonna eat the rabbits. So in picking a partner to do anything creatively with, my brother is my co-host on the show in many ways, but starting a business with your brother has got to be definitely an interesting or unique type of approach to opening a restaurant. How is it working together, and what is it like, especially since there is so much inspiration from your family in it, to like have your brother by your side, and which is a much larger restaurant than Mod, and your second kid, which is always different, that your second go around.
Right. It's a really interesting dynamic because he's my older brother.
Right.
Of course. So as a younger brother, you learn to do what your older brother tells you from a very early age.
Right.
I've got 2 boys myself, and I watch the 4-year-old push around the 1-year-old. And I'm like, it's like you get to watch your own life play out through your own kids. So I have to be a bit more careful with what I say than usual because, of course, in a chef-run business or a chef-owned restaurant, what the chef says is sort of that's how it goes.
Yes, chef. Right.
That's right. That's why the expression exists. But not when your older brother is the person that is supposed to say yes, chef. He doesn't always say yes, chef.
Isn't it so amazing when your older brother, you've put so many years and so much into cooking, and your brother who has never in a kitchen can come in and be like, no, I'm the older brother.
We're going to do it differently.
We're going to do it differently.
Look, it's that kind of it's that sort of thing that you stand beside somebody and you probably don't always see eye to eye, right?
Of course.
But the second you turn around, if anybody else said what you just said to your brother, you'd kick their ass.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it feels really good to have that level of backup and support and loyalty that you just, money can't buy it. Do you know what I mean?
Of
It's
course.
literally that old saying of blood being thicker than water. But, there's something super challenging about it too.
Of course. Now, there are a lot of, when people think of like a butcher-driven restaurant, they think of a very sort of like rustic type of, it's definitely in my mind a very stereotypical or archetype of restaurant, but it's different here. You have like an R&D lab.
Right.
And you also have your backyard, which is a less formal R&D lab. So what is the process when you're opening up a butcher restaurant to, in many ways, where Mod, you're saying something different every month? Like, how are you saying something different here that's, nose to tail dining, which has been around for a bit, but what are you doing differently?
Yeah, good question, because it's sort of the obvious way to think of it is, butcher shop and restaurant, so they must have big, beautiful steaks there, right?
Right, or terrines and things like that, like your pate, like you sort of have an idea, like I know what the menu is, but it's very surprising what the menu is, and what's the thought behind that?
Well, I wanted to, again, sort of try and push the boundaries a little bit on what is possible. So we've got a butcher shop, we've got 5 butchers and a charcutier, but that the thought of that is like, well, how do we manipulate it until it's fantastic as opposed to what you expect from a butcher shop, which is good but simple. So doing all of our own dry cures, bringing back all of those pâtés and rillettes and charcuterie, that old French school charcuterie that you don't see much anymore, and then of course the dry cure, which is kind of everywhere right now, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a bit more on trend to be making your own salamis and stuff. So of course we do that too, and that's kind of the first bites, that we give people a taste of the butcher shop right out of the gates. But then also thinking about, if we're going to have a whole animal butcher shop, how do we cook those whole animals and again manipulate them? And we use, the kitchen that you can see from the dining room doesn't have a plug in it. There's a josper, which is a coal burning oven, an asador, which is effectively a fire pit, a brasero, which is a burning basket of logs, and we rake those coals under a grill, and that's it. There's not an oven, there's not a stove top that doesn't run by fire. So we sort of exercise that muscle in the way of super rustic cooking.
Yeah.
But then, we smoke lamb shoulders over that acid ore, but then we put them into sous vide and cook them in an immersion circulator overnight and come back in the next morning and pull the meat and do something different with it. So we sort of, I guess, mix that old world, very rustic, been doing it for thousands of years, dry curing, smoking over fires, but then we also incorporate some technology and try and advance it somehow. And when we just have one slogan in our business, which is delicious comes first.
Mm-hmm.
If we can do it more deliciously by bringing in technology, great. If we can't, then let's just master the fire. And I think what we end up with is a good combination of those two things.
So in many ways, what you're doing with the fine dining scene and sort of trailblazing or setting of this new wave up of that, do you feel the same responsibility for this new wave of butchery? Like, are you hoping that more people come in and there's more butcher shops and you start to see people, maybe not in the same setup as you, but you're starting to see more butchers here, more butchers there, like in the LA area?
Look, even if it's that subliminal message that gets across, I don't expect people to understand what factory farming is, and I don't expect people to understand that their meat gets put through a nitrogen tunnel and slammed through a big machine that creates the diced beef that you see, mm-hmm. in a more mass market store. But, if anybody stops to ask themselves, well, why do they highlight their farmers, or why do they practice this butcher shop on an old world butcher's block in a window? The reason is because we really believe in great quality product. We believe in stuff that tastes fantastic, but we also believe in animal husbandry, and we also believe in, bringing that skill to life in a way that, yes, it will cost a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And so it should. Like as a guy that owns a butcher shop, I always tell people to eat less meat, but eat better quality meat.
Sure.
And I think that if we can get that message across a little bit, then we've succeeded at the message. And if we give someone something fantastic to eat, then we've succeeded at what we do for a job.
Now, for the butcher shop, you're also bringing in animals that are not readily available in pretty much anywhere else.
Right.
And so are you acting in many ways about showing people other types of meat, other types of cuts of meat, and ways to think about it where it is more special and less, but it's like a higher quality? And what are you bringing in?
So it's, I guess, just a collaboration of interesting ideas. We've got butchers that have worked overseas.
Mm-hmm.
I've obviously cooked overseas. We've got some great chefs from different parts of the world. So we sort of all get together and talk about different processes and techniques, and of course that involves procuring great quality product. We've got a grass-fed Wagyu beef that we're bringing in from Australia that has all of that minerality and like delicious grass-fed quality, but it's 100% Wagyu in breed, so it naturally has that rich, fatty, delicious, buttery sort of flavour, and this divine texture. So I love showing that to people and also explaining to them what it means. What is Wagyu? It's I don't even know where else you try and find it here in LA, but there's no reason why we shouldn't have access to it. It's a beautiful product, The same with game. I've always, as both a resident of Los Angeles and then a chef in Los Angeles, found it really difficult. When we first started Mort, I'd be FedExing birds in from the East Coast, which is so ludicrous. We have great growers and we have people with good attitudes that are prepared to try stuff for you and grow rabbits or geese or whatever it is. So we've managed to sort of open up some lines of supply that haven't historically existed, and whether that's locally grown stuff or stuff that comes a little further. Once the sort of British game season kicks in, we're going to procure a bunch of stuff from different game reserves from over there. So whether it's European customers that are missing that from home, or whether it's locals that are trying something for the first time, it's a cool thing.
Not only is it a cool thing, it's a lot. The butcher shop, 2 restaurants, still the family, still what you do for 2 things like that. Like, how do you find the balance? Because pretty much every time I've come into one of your restaurants, you're in there. Yeah. Now obviously you can't cook at both restaurants at each night, but how do you find a balance? And how important is it to you to be a chef in your restaurant and cooking?
I think if you're not going to do it, there's no point to doing it. You know, like
not be there.
Right. Like with anything in life, you know, there's no point being a father if you're going to be an absent father. You got to be there, and there's no point being a chef if you're not going to cook. So how do I balance it? I don't. That's the truth. I've never been able to balance stuff. I've never had balance in my life.
Sure.
I push myself harder than I probably should. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning so I can be with my kids, because my time with my kids is in the morning, because I'm in the restaurants at night. But then I'm in the restaurants till midnight, and then I want to work with the front of house team to try and help them improve their service. So I'm here until 2 o'clock in the morning with them, and I probably go a little harder than I should. But I love it. I love what I do, and I don't want to miss it. You know, so I'll find balance one day, but I haven't got it right now. I'm working some crazy hours. I think if you're really passionate about something, then it doesn't feel like work, and it never does to me. You know, like I speed every morning. I shouldn't say this on live to the air, but I do. I speed down the hill to get to work as fast as I can, because I want to be there, you know, and I speed home to get to my family at night time because I want to be there too. So I don't know, I've always lived my life pretty fast paced, I guess.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. How do people get into mod? And then how do people get into Gwen? Gwen's a little bit bigger, so it's easier, but
it's a little broader. Yeah, look, mod, we've been super lucky. We've had a group of really loyal diners that haven't missed a menu, which is amazing to me, that people have literally for the best part of 3 years gone every month to the same restaurant, and they haven't missed one. And I wonder how long we can go without doing that. Then it's a tiny room, but truthfully, I think the misconception about Maud is it's impossible, and it's not impossible. There's actually some tables open for next month right now, so you know, you can go to. We do an online reservation system to make it as simple as possible. And on the first of the month at 10 a.m, if you log on to Maud, you will get a table. So I guarantee it.
Great. And how can people find you online? You have a good Instagram game? How's your social media?
It used to be good before I opened these restaurants, and now it's a little dodgier. But I try and keep my hand in it for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations. Looking forward to coming back and eating again and again. And as someone who's a transplant now in LA, I appreciate that you have these two restaurants.
Thanks so much. It's been nice chatting to you. And anytime, I would love to cook you dinner.
Well, thank you so much. We have one of our favorite, little sullen for summer, but I love it. It's Porches in the Mood, live here on Snacky Tunes.
I just wait around to hear the good news, to hear the good news. I just wait around to hear from you, to hear from you. Are you in the mood? Oh, I think I said the wrong Don't know what I do, but I don't wanna be here. Don't wanna be here. I just wait around to hear the good news, to hear the good news. If you want to be on your way. Well, you don't have to stay.
This is Chris Howell from Cane Vineyard and Winery, calling in from Spring Mountain above the Napa Valley. Thank you for listening to this show. In our industrial world of highly processed food and wine, we support the values of Heritage Radio Network. All of us at Cane encourage you to seek out individuality and beauty in everything you eat and drink. To learn more about us, go to cane5.com.
All right, welcome back to Snacky Tunes. B-Boys live. Let's hear your best vomit voice.
Live in New York.
You want to go around the room and introduce yourselves?
Do I speak into this thing?
Yeah.
Do I speak into the microphone? My name is Britton. Play in B-Boys. I'm a OGB, and we're all OGBs though.
Yeah,
so.
okay. My name is Brendan, and I play bass and sing.
I'm Andrew. I play the drums.
Okay. How did the three of you meet? Three self-proclaimed psychos.
I met Britton when I was going to school. I met him when I was 18 at first, and I didn't see him for like 3 years. And then
Didn't
I met
like him.
Yeah, he didn't like me.
Didn't like the cut of the jib?
He was just a little worm.
I had a fun haircut. No, and then I met Andrew like 3 years ago, I guess, like at a bar randomly. And then I moved back to Texas for a while, and then I was like, we're still going to play music. And then, so we actually met again to play music in like a year and a half
Guys, don't
later.
forget about me.
Yeah.
This is still happening.
Yeah, I was like, I swear, we got the riffs. So, I don't know. And that's how we all met. We kind of, through mutual friends. And too, we kind of played the same circuit of shows. Andrew's from Florida, and Britt and I lived in Texas. So we kind of had the same kind of like DIY house show connections.
What was one of the more acclaimed DIY venues that you played? Any of the particular houses that stood out from the others?
I mean, in Fort Worth, we have Hemp Hill, which is one of the long-time standing DIY venues in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah, that's like a legit DIY venue, I feel.
Yeah.
What makes it so good?
It's just an open community space. Everyone's safe.
They have every show that no one else will have. So you always have a place to play with Hemp Hill. There's someone always working it, and people actually put in volunteer hours to make it run. They put in the work to actually keep it up, and DIY spaces usually come and go pretty quick, like houses and different spaces get shut down and stuff, and Hemp Hill's one that's lasted a long time and had a lot of fundraisers, and just people really support it that hopefully can keep it going. So if you're in Fort Worth, donate to 1999 Pelican.
Is it a proper PA in there, or is it still like pretty DIY?
Last time I was there, it's pretty bare bones. You're just on the ground in cement. They got a little quarter pipe.
It works though. It's punk.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
And so you guys were loosely playing. Like, when did B-Boys finally gel or kind of come together?
2014, we gelled. We put the Dr. Scholl's on. We walked in step together, and we gelled. Yeah, I guess 2014 we just met, and this band has been pretty easy to write songs. So Britt and I have jammed in other projects before, so we kind of have similar music taste, and we all vibe pretty easily. It just felt right. The chemistry worked.
What makes it so easy, or what kind of fell into step?
Andrew's a really good drummer.
Just the backbone.
Yeah, that helps. Britton and I have pretty similar taste in riffs, so if Britton comes, we play our instrument, I'll play guitar, he'll play bass every once in a while. We just can switch off, and we kind of both feel what each other wants, so we kind of just can vibe off each other pretty fast.
Awesome. Can we hear a song?
Yeah.
What are you going to play first?
Britton?
Sound freak.
All right, sound frequency.
time in either direction. And when I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. Increased reverberation. There is a shift in the red, a shift in the blue, and audible degradation. In a frequency. The frequent, the frequent. In a frequency. Frequent to frequent, all of frequency. Pitch in human deception. When one hurts, one time in equal vibration. And when I come to your house, shatter your dreams, subliminal message. Awaken, open your eyes, see the sound free, and feel the compression. I've been counting every note, turn the dial and watch the tone of sound frequency. I've been counting every note, turn the dial and watch the tone of sound frequency. Because I got lost in your I know you're frequent, I know you're frequent. Because I got lost in I know you're frequent, I know you're frequent. Because I got lost in your frequency. I know you're frequent, I know you're frequent. Because I got lost in a different reality.
You talk about Dadaism coming through your records.
Ooh.
How does it weave into the songwriting? I mean, they said New York is Dada, which and you have like a very New York 70s sound to it. So does it come from there, or?
I think we all have kind of been inspired from the art movement itself, just of not really taking things too seriously, like putting stuff together kind of in different ways, but with that kind of not serious or no direction, you kind of create a message with it or something like that. And I think as loose as the term is, it can kind of be redefined as however we feel it. We just also thought it sounded fun. So it's a fun movement. It's it's just kind of about doing whatever you kind of please and just trying to slap, cut, glue, whatever it takes just to make a song kind of come together or something, or just a vibe like that. So,
I mean, as you guys have kind of share riffs and have a strong drummer, how does the songwriting process, also loosely informed by an art movement, come together? And how do you play into each other?
I mean,
hit it.
We just jam. We're just rockers. We just jam. That's all we do. We just get we do a lot of repetitive stuff. So it's easy to get kind of hypnotized, and then everyone can throw their little extra sauce on there.
Yeah, we just I don't know.
Just looking at that pizza.
Yeah, we get
throw the cheese
on
you mix
there,
the cheese,
you get some pepperoni.
Yeah,
on there.
you oven fry it, and then out comes a hot, delicious song that I hope we get in 20 minutes. So, I think we just all kind of someone brings a riff, and we kind of just sometimes a chorus part can be agonizing to figure out, or a second part. Other times it just comes really fast and just and usually the faster the better. It kind of feels like if we play a song a lot and it doesn't really come together, usually those aren't our favorite songs.
Mm.
The ones that kind of come together the fastest and just kind of...
We're usually kind of joking at first.
That's
how they work the easiest.
That's true.
When we're serious, it's not working.
Yes. It's our song Psycho came out, I just played a riff and Britton was just standing with a microphone, no drums or anything. He's just I'm psycho! And I was like, okay, that rules.
You're okay,
yeah.
Next, got it, put it in the box.
Exactly. And it's just I don't know, when all the songs you just have to take the approach of just letting things kind of fall by the wayside, don't hold anything too precious, and just let it kind of ride, at least in the songwriting.
I mean, if it doesn't feel natural, it ain't natural.
Can we hear another song?
Yeah.
What are you guys going to play?
Andrew?
Hitman?
Yeah, okay. The song's called Never.
So I know you are working on a record, demoing, if you will.
Yes.
With the amazing Captured Tracks, which is awesome. A Snacky Tunes favorite label.
Cool, yeah.
Ours too.
Yeah.
I love that label.
How is the process going for kind of refining the songs to get them down to the record?
It's going pretty good. We just we bought a whiteboard recently to write down all the songs, because usually when we practice, we just come up with a riff and we kind of get lost in riffs. We're like, oh my god, we have so many weird ideas, but we don't put anything together. So we kind of have like a whiteboard with like things in the green are need to get worked on, things in the red are up in the air, things in the blue are complete, and then we're like kind of mapping out the record. So I guess we're just trying to be as productive and as efficient as possible at this point, but sometimes you just get stoned and jam a lot, so you kind of lose focus. But.
And is there any plans for a tour in the upcoming fall or hitting the road?
Yeah, in October, me and Donnie are going to fly down to Florida, meet Andrew, and then go from Florida to Texas and back. So we'll get to hit both our home states.
Yeah.
Where are you playing for the homecoming shows?
Dallas is up in the air right now, I feel.
Dallas, Gainesville, Delray.
We're playing a couple good different places that are like long-standing spots. Miami, we're playing this place called Gramps.
Gramps?
Yeah.
It's a good
Gainesville,
name.
this place called the Atlantic.
Yeah, we'll go back
spots. Playing with our friend Soda in Florida.
Yeah.
All the Florida dates are with them.
That'd be good. I get to see my parents. They get to see me do my thing.
Yeah, the venues like in Denton where we're from, like we would love to play there, but it's just kind of everyone lives here now, and then like the main. So I don't really know. I don't really know anyone there.
Kind of transient college town, so it's always kind of changing. We have some crucial people there, but we don't really know what. They moved to Dallas, whatever.
Yeah.
So
they left Denton, and so you're just like all new people.
Yeah.
All new faces.
Yeah, it's like
We're from there. We can bring a crowd.
Yeah.
We promise.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I want to make sure we have time for one more song.
Yeah, definitely.
Where can people find you, get the music, find out tour dates, offer you shows, offer you couches?
bboys.bandcamp.com, bboysdada.tumblr, bboysdada@gmail.com, bboysdada@instagram.com, bboysdada@facebookmessenger.com. Capture Tracks website. If you Google it, it might not exist. I don't know where that is.
Yeah, I looked for it the other day.
I couldn't find it.
Link's broken.
Yeah, it's coming. You got some time.
We got Spotify. We're on there. B-Boys, No Worry, No Mind might be easier.
I can't believe B-Boys wasn't taken.
A lawyer said that it might be questionable, so we're just going to write it out. You might see it as the D-Boys coming up next album. A-Boys.
Yeah.
Who knows?
What's the name of the last song you're going to play?
Otherhead.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, definitely,
Thanks
man.
to our guest. We'll be back next week with another live episode of Snacky Tunes.
And I'm distressed. I got something growing out my neck. It's the other head. The skin abrased, it's cracked and dry, and it's not so perfect, and it's not so perfect on the other side. When I look at you, it's like you're staring back at me. When you find yourself, it seems to happen naturally. Always standing in the jet cashing line. I think I'm waiting too long. Said I'm waiting too long. I said I'm waiting too long. Then he said that I'm always by your side, and that I'm not that perfect, and I'm not that perfect, and I'm not that perfect. When I look at you, it's like you're staring back at me. When you find yourself, it seems to happen naturally. When I look get you.
Always waiting.
It's like you're staring back at me. When you find yourself
staring into the wondering eyes of the other head.
When you think to yourself, do you think of yourself? When you think to yourself, do you think of yourself? When you think to yourself,
waiting, I'm watching.
Do you think of yourself?
I can see from behind.
When you think to yourself,
look at me, don't look at them.
Do you think of
Gone
yourself?
deeper inside.
When you think to yourself,
think of pontificates.
Do you think of
yourself? Purple is grandeur.
When you think to yourself,
disciples are suffering.
Do you think of yourself?
Always dimpling.
Do you think of yourself? When you think to yourself,
do you think yourself?
Do you think of yourself? When you think to yourself,
think yourself. Think yourself.
Do you think of yourself?
Yourself.
When you think to yourself,
think yourself. Think yourself.
Do you think of yourself?
Think yourself. Think yourself.
When you think to yourself,
do you think yourself?
Do you think of yourself?
Do you think of yourself?
When you think to yourself,
do you think yourself?
Do you think of yourself?
Do you think yourself?
When you think to yourself, well, probably not.
We talk about food, we talk about music with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, Snacky Tunes.
Thanks for listening to this program on heritageradionetwork.org. You can find all of our archived programs on our website or as podcasts in the iTunes Store by searching Heritage Radio Network. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at @heritage_radio. You can email us questions at any time at info@heritageradionetwork.org. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization. To donate and become a member, visit our website today. Thanks for listening.